as you're reading this, there's a voice in your head reminding you of something important, something you've been putting off, maybe for days, maybe for weeks, possibly even months. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to reveal the exact neurological process that's been hijacking your productivity, and more importantly, how to permanently rewire it. This isn't another productivity hack that sounds good in theory, but fails in practice. What I'm about to share with you is a fundamental transformation of how your nervous system responds to challenging tasks. By the time we're done here, you'll see procrastination through a completely different lens, one that makes taking action inevitable rather than optional. I understand your struggle intimately. You've probably convinced yourself that you lack discipline, that you're somehow broken or deficient. Prepare yourself for a revelation that will shatter that belief. Procrastination isn't a character flaw, it's a survival mechanism that's misfiring. Your attention for the next several minutes could be the turning point that changes everything about how you approach work, goals, and life itself. Before we dive deeper, I'd appreciate if you could hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up to help others discover this information, and enable notifications so you catch all future content. All right, let's get into it. Part 1, Shattering the Fundamental Myth. We need to immediately dismantle the most damaging story you've been telling yourself. The narrative that procrastination equals laziness is not just wrong, it's dangerously misleading. Procrastination is actually a sophisticated fear response, operating beneath your conscious awareness, quietly destroying your potential while you blame yourself for weakness. Let me walk you through the actual neuroscience of what's happening when you delay important work. Deep in your brain sits a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Despite its modest size, roughly equivalent to an almond, this region essentially dictates most of your behavioral choices. Evolution has spent millions of years perfecting this structure with one primary directive: identify dangers and preserve your survival. Here's where everything goes wrong. Your amygdala operates on ancient programming. It genuinely cannot differentiate between a legitimate life-threatening situation, like encountering a predator, and a modern stressor, like delivering a high-stakes presentation. Both trigger identical alarm responses in your nervous system. When you contemplate that overdue report, that crucial phone call, or that intimidating project deadline, your amygdala activates its emergency protocols. The warning is unmistakable: threat detected, escape immediately to survive. Your prefrontal cortex, the advanced reasoning center that should logically override this response, instead becomes complicit in the deception. Rather than recognizing the false alarm, it manufactures elaborate justifications for avoidance. The timing isn't optimal right now. Additional preparation is absolutely necessary. Inspiration hasn't struck yet. Tomorrow will genuinely be more suitable. I'll definitely handle it then. Research from the University of Rochester demonstrates that these seemingly rational thoughts are actually post hoc rationalizations. Your brain creating logical sounding excuses to justify an emotional decision that was already made milliseconds earlier by your amygdala. A prominent neuroscientist specializing in behavioral patterns explains it this way: your survival-oriented brain has a singular focus on keeping you alive. Anything uncertain, potentially uncomfortable, or possibly painful gets categorized as a survival threat, which activates your built-in avoidance programming. When you postpone starting that significant project, the issue isn't lack of ambition. The real problem is that an ancient part of your brain is broadcasting fear-based messages. What if this ends in complete failure? What if you're exposed as incompetent? What if you're not actually capable? Safer to never attempt it, then you can't be proven inadequate. This is the critical insight that changes everything. Procrastination represents a malfunctioning protection system. Your brain isn't sabotaging your success deliberately. It believes it's shielding you from potential embarrassment, failure, or discomfort. But here's what changes everything. This system can be deliberately reprogrammed through specific techniques. In just a moment, I'll reveal exactly how to do it. Part 2, the motivation molecule. Revealed to transform your procrastination patterns, you must understand the chemistry driving your behavior. That means exploring dopamine in a way that goes far deeper than typical explanations. Most people incorrectly describe dopamine as simply the pleasure neurotransmitter. This is fundamentally inaccurate. Dopamine doesn't create pleasure, it generates motivational drive. It's the actual neurochemical fuel that propels you toward objectives, especially when every instinct is screaming at you to quit. Your brain operates using two distinct dopamine systems. Grasping this distinction explains why you can effortlessly consume an entire season of a show in one sitting, but struggle to maintain focus on meaningful work for even 20 minutes. System 1: phasic dopamine. These are sudden intense spikes that drive impulsive behavior. This is what's activated when you click away to a distracting video mid-task. It's the force behind mindless social media scrolling. It's what breaks your diet plans, drives substance use, and triggers impulse purchases. System 2, tonic dopamine. This is the steady, sustained dopamine flow that enables prolonged concentration on a single task. This system allows you to engage with a lengthy book from cover to cover. It's what enables sustained focus, consistent motivation, and resistance to constant distractions. The fundamental problem for chronic procrastinators is that phasic dopamine is constantly disrupting tonic dopamine. Imagine having a steady stream of motivation flowing toward your important goals, but someone repeatedly interrupts that flow to divert it toward immediately gratifying but ultimately trivial activities. A neuroplasticity researcher from Stanford, who's dedicated over 10 years to this field, explains contemporary life subjects our brains to relentless stimuli engineered specifically to exploit our reward circuitry. Social platforms, gaming, video content, notification alerts, all of these are algorithmically optimized to generate those sudden dopamine spikes. A frightening reality: every single time you surrender to these impulses, you're actively training your brain to prioritize immediate gratification over sustained, meaningful productivity. Part 3: identifying your core fears. I need you to pause and honestly consider that task you've been avoiding. Now answer with complete honesty. What fear is actually driving this avoidance? Fear that you're genuinely inadequate, fear of discovering you're less capable than you believed, fear that you'll start but lack the ability to finish, fear of harsh judgment from others. Identify your specific fear and physically write it down. Here's something crucial. The act of handwriting activates your motor cortex in coordination with your limbic system. This process transforms abstract fear into concrete reality that can be directly confronted. Unidentified fears function like enormous shadows that keep your threat detection system constantly activated. When you externalize these fears onto paper, you shift processing from your emotional, reactive systems to your logical, rational prefrontal cortex. Naming your fear explicitly is the foundational step toward dismantling procrastination. Part 4: reversing your fear response. Now, I'll teach you something that contradicts common intuition. You need to learn to fear the correct thing. Most people fear taking action. I'm going to teach you to fear inaction instead. Close your eyes and visualize this scenario with me. 6 months into the future, you still haven't addressed what you're avoiding today. How does that feel? Which opportunities have permanently passed you by? What potential version of yourself have you allowed to die? Now project forward 3 years, same avoidance patterns, identical fears. Describe your life at that point. This visualization exercise isn't designed to cause suffering, but to fundamentally rewire your decision-making process. The greatest risk isn't attempting something and failing. It's never attempting and spending your life wondering what might have been possible. Your brain naturally avoids the immediate discomfort of beginning, while completely ignoring the massive long-term suffering that is regret. When you train yourself to fear inaction more intensely than you fear action, something profound shifts in your psychology. Procrastinating becomes more painful than taking action. Part 5: the dopamine strategy. Your motivational systems are governed by specific dopaminergic neural pathways. These pathways control your drive to engage with rewarding activities. The challenge is that modern life is saturated with distractions engineered to hijack these pathways. This is why you need a systematic approach. Structure your life using these principles: single task focus. Identify exactly one challenging task you must complete today. Your brain cannot generate tonic dopamine for multiple simultaneous objectives, compressed deadlines. If you estimate needing 4 hours, allocate yourself 3 instead. Strategic time pressure enhances efficiency dramatically. Pre-selected rewards. Before beginning, choose something genuinely desirable that you'll only permit yourself to enjoy after task completion. Elimination of distractions. Physically remove your phone from the room. Close unnecessary browser tabs. Disable all notifications. Remember this critical distinction: rewards must be intentional, not habitual. Streaming services aren't rewards if you already watch them automatically. Social media isn't a reward if you access it from boredom. Transform enjoyable activities into earned rewards. This makes the task itself more engaging while intensifying the pleasure of the reward. But be vigilant, there's a hidden obstacle that can sabotage this entire system: perfectionism. Part 6: The Disguised Saboteur. Perfectionism. Many people mistakenly believe perfectionists are highly productive. The opposite is often true. Perfectionism masquerades as logic and reason. I can't begin now because I have another commitment in 2 hours. I need to feel inspired to produce quality work. The conditions aren't ideal. This isn't the optimal moment. These thoughts are sophisticated traps. The reality is there's never a perfect moment. There's only the moment you decide to begin. Implement the imperfect action rule. Commit to just 2 minutes of deliberately mediocre work. No performance pressure, no result expectations, just action. Why is this effective? The primary barrier isn't doing something well, it's simply starting. Once you overcome initial inertia, continuation becomes significantly easier. Your brain cannot deploy perfectionist excuses against something you've already accepted will be imperfect. Part 7: Environmental Engineering. You are not stronger than your environment. If your workspace is cluttered with distractions, if your surroundings are chaotic, if your phone constantly demands attention, you've already lost before the battle begins. Procrastination is frequently just a mirror reflecting the environment you've constructed around yourself. Want to transform your behavior? Transform your environment. Design a workspace that facilitates action, clean, minimal, free from excess. Make your intended task unavoidable. If you need to write, leave your notebook or computer already open to the correct document. Minimize friction for desired behaviors. Maximize friction for undesired behaviors. Keep your phone physically inaccessible. Install website blocking software. Hide shortcut icons to distracting applications. Your brain instinctively follows the path of least resistance. When you engineer an environment that makes action easy and escape difficult, procrastination loses its power. Part 8: The Clarity Principle. Procrastination isn't laziness, it's often simply confusion. You don't begin because you don't know the exact first step. The task appears like an overwhelming, shapeless giant. The solution is clarity. Take your task and fragment it into steps so small they seem almost absurd. Not write a book, but open the document and type a title. Not organize the entire house, but fold 5 items of clothing. This activates the Zeigarnik effect. Your mind feels tension around incomplete tasks. If you initiate even tiny steps, your brain generates internal pressure to continue until completion. Don't wait for clarity to spontaneously appear. Construct clarity by breaking large objectives into minimal fragments. Part 9: The Energy Management System. Have you noticed you procrastinate more when you're exhausted? Your brain consumes approximately 20% of your body's total energy. When energy reserves are depleted, it naturally gravitates toward less demanding activities. Therefore, energy management isn't a luxury, it's a strategic necessity. Prioritize quality sleep. No productivity technique can compensate for chronic sleep deprivation. Engage in physical movement. Exercise increases blood circulation and cognitive clarity. Eat strategically. Don't rely on sugar crashes and caffeine spikes. Respect your natural rhythms. Determine whether you're most productive during morning, afternoon, or evening hours. Schedule your most demanding work during your peak energy windows. If you fail to manage your energy, it's irrelevant how many productivity strategies you learn. Your depleted body will always override your exhausted mind. Part 10: The Personal Commitment Contract. Procrastination thrives on vague intentions. You tell yourself, I'll do it someday, but someday never arrives today. Create binding contracts with yourself. It can be simple. Write your task on paper, sign it, display it prominently, or make it more intense. Tell another person, declare it publicly. Establish real consequences for an action. Commitment transforms vague intention into concrete obligation. When you position yourself to honor your word, your identity begins shifting. You evolve from someone who procrastinates into someone who delivers. Part 11: The Action-Oriented Identity. Ultimately, conquering procrastination isn't about clever tricks or shortcuts. It's about who you decide to become. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary warrior, never waited for motivation to appear. He acted because action defined his identity. You don't need to become a warrior, but you must engage with your daily challenges. Every time you act despite fear, despite doubt, despite the urge to delay, you reinforce an action-oriented identity within yourself. Gradually, procrastination stops being your default pattern and becomes merely a forgotten memory. If you've watched the entire video, I'm genuinely grateful for your attention and commitment. I encourage you to explore the next video that will appear on your screen, where you'll discover even more valuable insights. Stay present, act with integrity, continue on your path.